She ignites the lightsaber and backs him against the mouth of the cave, holding it to his throat. Her anguished eyes stare at him unfocused. Pressed against him, she meets his sympathetic gaze. He gently takes hold of her arm, the red blade still throbbing right in front of his throat. Osha gazes deeply into his eyes.
How does it feel?
Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you over 1 million Hellions and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. The Force is Female has come full cycle. Back on April 22nd of 2020, when it was announced that former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein, Leslie Headland, will be heading a Star Wars project.
I just try to treat everything as if we're on RuPaul's Drag Race.
Many of us at the time speculated it would be an intersectional feminist fever dream, focusing more on identity politics than actually crafting a story.
Yes.
Devolving into mystery box bullshit, which is a cheap way of circumventing characterization and narrative, with the added bonus of on-brand Disney Star Wars lore destruction, jingling key cameos, and fan attacks. And now, well over 4 years later, it's been confirmed. The Acolyte is indeed an intersectional feminist fever dream that focused more on identity politics rather than crafting a story that devolved into mystery box bullshit, which circumvented characterization and narrative, with a healthy serving of that on-brand Disney Star Wars lore destruction, key jingling cameos, and fan attacks. So let's get to episode 8 of The Acolyte, called The Acolyte. Previously on The Acolyte.
The best parts about Star Wars is there is no good or evil. It depends on what side you're standing on.
I feel like Star Wars is very like patriarchal, so it was kind of cool to have like this sort of woman-centered figure.
People have told me that it's the gayest Star Wars, and I'm frankly into it.
I carried them. I created them.
It's pretty gay, let's be honest.
But if you can't look and see that Anakin blowing up the Death Star possibly killed millions and millions of people, I'm gonna get in trouble for saying.
You should just shut up.
It's just like,
but that
is the beauty of this story.
Are you people f***ing retarded?
But a Jedi like you might call me Sith.
I can't help but feel partially responsible.
I think it's canon that R2-D2 is a lesbian.
The power of one. The power of two. The power of many. I dropped a diss track. That's what I heard.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
You get nauseous when you drop through hyperspace? I don't get sick. I find it unsettling.
I cannot see, I'm legally blind.
We open up directly following the events of episode 6, which was followed by the flashback episode 7, which was essentially a repeat of the flashback episode 3. We last saw a diverse non-binary female protagonist putting on a helmet, and wouldn't you know it, she has a vision of diverse non-binary antagonist who was briefly a protagonist, who is now back to being an antagonist, killing that guy from Squid Game, and she knows where they'll be later in the episode.
How convenient.
And because The Acolyte is somewhere between a CW show and the worst kind of 14-year-old girl fan fiction written as a coloring book, Little Wang, who wants to kill both the guy from Squid Game and the diverse non-binary antagonist who's briefly a protagonist who's now back to being an antagonist, and diverse non-binary protagonist who wants to stop diverse non-binary antagonist who is briefly a protagonist who's now back to being an antagonist from killing that guy from Squid Game, decide to go together in the same ship.
With what ship? I'm taking mine.
You're going where exactly? I've seen where they are.
So we go together and see who gets to her first.
And you may or may not remember that the last time we saw a diverse non-binary antagonist who was briefly a protagonist who's now back to being an antagonist, and that guy from Squid Game, he had her restrained on a bed. Right, what you know, Leslie. Anyway, that guy from Squid Game was finally going to reveal the truth that he had been teasing all season.
I'll explain everything. I'll explain. It's time for me to face the High Council, to tell everything.
Everything?
So you're going to listen. You and Osha are not twins. You're not even sisters. You're...
Good thing we watched the last episode, which was essentially a rehash of the third episode, which basically confirmed that diverse non-binary antagonist who was briefly a protagonist, who's now back to being an antagonist, set a fire in the highly flammable stone structure, killing the remaining coven of lesbian space witches that Moss Windu didn't kill when they possessed Kelnaka. And Soul can't help it if he's retarded and some lesbian space witch rematerialized around his lightsaber. What he is guilty of is having inappropriate connections to a youngling. But as it goes with mystery box storytelling, the audience has to wait for the uninteresting main character or characters to catch up with him. You know, it's too bad the Jedi Master Soul didn't think to remove the plot convenience from his captive. And the diverse non-binary antagonist who was briefly a protagonist who's back to being an antagonist gets away. It's barely an inconvenience. Nice helmet, by the way. But when that guy from Squid Game has diverse non-binary antagonist who was briefly a protagonist who's now an antagonist in his sights, Space Beaver sabotages him.
Whoop-de-doo! What does it all mean, Basil?
Diverse non-binary protagonist had the aforementioned vision and took Little Wang with her. Diverse non-binary antagonist who was briefly a protagonist who's back to being an antagonist crashes relatively close to the highly flammable stone structure. And that guy from Squid Game turns on his transponder and the Jedi receive it. But there is one small scene worth mentioning because it wouldn't be an episode of The Acolyte without Leslie Headland taking George Lucas's lore to Harvey's couch. Oh, I've used that one too much already. How about Dave Filoni taking George Lucas's lore to the doghouse? Because it happened, folks. They plagueist.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
You may think it's about the Sith Lord being betrayed and killed by his apprentice Palpatine, but in truth, he was arrested for stalking after being caught watching a young Asian man sleep in a cave on an island. At this point, Disney analytics dictates there needs to be some action and lightsabers. And after diverse non-binary protagonist is somehow able to hotwire a door in a combustible stone structure where 16 years previous the generators blew up, we get Smilo Ren versus that guy from Squid Game in Crouching Patriarchy and Hidden Misogyny.
Liu Kang. Liu Kang. Fight!
I'm fucking big done!
Intercut with the matchup 5s and 10s of people were waiting for, when diverse non-binary antagonist who was previously a protagonist who's now back to being an antagonist tells diverse non-binary protagonist that that guy from Squid Game killed their mom. It leads to a Disney Star Wars first, some sister-on-sister action, and it went down something like this. But in all seriousness, we did almost get some scissoring. And Smilo Ren pulled out his Little Wang. That guy from Squid Game gets the best of Smilo Ren, and then we get a double heel turn. And I hope you're all keeping track at home because quite frankly, I'm having trouble. Diverse non-binary antagonist who was previously a protagonist who's now back to being an antagonist saves Smilo Ren from that guy from Squid Game. This is the point where Disney analytics dictates it's time to repurpose something from the real Star Wars.
Your hate has made you powerful. Fulfill your destiny.
Never.
Hi, Mandy! Hi, Mandy!
Well, screw that. This is better.
Good, May. Feel your anger. This is the source of your pain. Strike him down, and your journey will be complete.
No.
Oh, come on!
So now it's diverse non-binary protagonist who was formerly an antagonist who was formerly a protagonist who was formerly an antagonist.
But wait! There's more!
Then diverse non-binary protagonist shows up and that guy from Squid Game admits he killed her mom.
And you killed her. You killed our mother.
Yes, I did.
Is that true?
Turning diverse non-binary protagonist into, you guessed it, diverse non-binary antagonist who was formerly a protagonist. And this brings us to what is undoubtedly a big W for DEI, a Disney Star Wars milestone. The first black female to identify as non-binary to force choke an Asian man, whose last words are, "I love you."
I did everything because I love.
Disney, I'm sure you're aware you have a bit of a reputation right now with the way your company acts and what you put into your scripts, and with something like this, it's really hard to argue that. Anyway, that guy from Squid Game says it's okay to kill him now.
Stop talking.
It's okay.
I better use my strong hand.
Fatality.
Then diverse non-binary protagonist who was previously an antagonist, who was previously a protagonist, who was previously an antagonist, smirks. And this is where things get shockingly stupid. Anakin's turn to the dark side in Revenge of the Sith was downright arduous compared to this. Diverse non-binary antagonist who was formerly a protagonist force chokes a Jedi with no training, bleeds on her kyber crystal, which turns her lightsaber red.
Red. That's red.
Girls get it done.
That not so anticipated reveal of who is Smilo Ren's master? Well, we find out it's Jedi Master Nepo in a basic line of dialogue.
You're alive.
And I can hear you now, dear viewer. They're obviously setting up a confrontation between Smilo Ren, the twins, Jedi Master Nepo, and our Jedi Corps of cosplayers, and Darth Plagueis. And Plagueis killing everyone because that's the only way you can justify the Jedi not knowing about the Sith, and lesbian space witches who use the Force to conceive twins without a father. You sweet summer children, there you go again trying to make sense. Nope, Smilo Ren runs away with the twins. And instead of doubling his pleasure, the idiot mind wipes May and sends her back to the Jedi. No confrontation, no Darth Plagueis. The Acolyte ends with a series of meetings, and we find out who the true villain is. I mean, besides Kathleen Kennedy and former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein, Leslie Headland, no, it's her wife, Jedi Master Nepo, who not only covers up the existence of the twins and her former Padawan has gone to the Sith, Jedi Master Nepo covers up the previous Jedi cover-up by framing Sol as the murderer of all the Jedi with this line, which also expresses exactly how Disney feels about George Lucas's Star Wars.
Well, this is a terrible tragedy. It was the work of one flawed man.
And this show is the work of one flawed woman. When in doubt, blame the man who did nothing wrong. This is the point where Disney Analytics dictates there needs to be another pointless cameo.
Sorry to disturb you, Master. We need to talk.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
So what's Jedi Master Nepo gonna say here? Yeah, Master Yoda, there was this coven of lesbian space witches who conceived twins without a father that died mysteriously at the hands of some Jedi who covered it up, and then those Jedi were murdered along with a dozen others, directly or indirectly at the hands of my former Padawan, and I framed an innocent man for some of those murders? Or is she just gonna ask for some vacation time to take care of the one loose end? Whack Basil. And this scenario creates a lot of questions. Is Yoda complicit? Does he know about these cover-ups? And does he know about the Sith, and has he been lying? Or is he a clueless idiot that leads to 50 more questions? And then I remembered,
I don't care.
I could go on, but I won't. The Acolyte is the worst Star Wars ever made, the worst Disney Star Wars ever made, and it's everything Kathleen Kennedy wanted. Replacing heroism and masculinity with moral relativism, replacing talent with activists, and big shocker, it doesn't work. So ends the derivative fanfic forces female fever dream. The Acolyte is over, and so is Disney Star Wars, but inexplicably, they don't know it yet.
Nerdrotic.com.
If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.